Imagine for a second turning $500 million worth of cutting-edge military hardware into just a smoldering crater in the middle of a foreign desert.
And doing it on purpose, right?
Exactly, on purpose, just to save a single man who is stranded out there in the freezing dark. Because that's exactly what happened during this crazy media blackout that recently brought the entire United States Capitol to an absolute standstill.
Yeah, that blackout was, it was unprecedented.
It really was. If you were anywhere near the White House on that seemingly ordinary afternoon, you would have seen the standard political theater, reporters milling about, cameras rolling on the lawn.
The usual stuff.
Right, the usual. And then, completely without warning, the entire media apparatus was just physically dismantled. For 40 straight hours, nearly 40 reporters were escorted off the premises.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The briefing room went dark. No leaks, no off-the-record text messages, just this massive vacuum of silence.
Which, is the ultimate anomaly in modern Washington. The 24-hour news cycle is literally a machine designed to fill vacuums.
Oh, totally.
So when you forcefully shut it down like that, the speculation just goes into overdrive.
And the rumors were apocalyptic. You had people on social media, even cable news, genuinely asking, is the president severely ill? Has a nuclear device been triggered? Are we, launching a full-scale ground war?
Right, 2 full days of just panic speculation.
But the truth hidden behind that blackout was it was so much wilder than anyone guessed. There was no illness. The White House hadn't been locked down because of a threat inside the building.
Right.
It had been transformed into a sterile, leak-proof war room. They needed total information dominance to remotely command one of the most breathtaking, complex, and frankly terrifying military rescue operations in modern history.
And this is all happening thousands of miles away, deep inside Iran.
Exactly. And unpacking that razor-thin margin of error is our entire mission for today's deep dive. We're going to look under the hood of what's been dubbed Operation Zagros Shadow.
Which is just a fascinating case study.
It really is. And to do this, we aren't using sanitized government press releases. We are relying on a massive stack of intelligence compiled by a highly regarded cyber military analyst.
Yeah, and the methodology here is key. This analyst utilized incredibly sophisticated AI data aggregation tools.
Right, like scraping and piecing together fragmented reports from everywhere. Reuters, Bloomberg, the New York Times, even satellite imagery, and intercepted local chatter.
What this AI aggregation produced is granular tactical breakdown of an operation that, honestly, defense circles are already calling Black Hawk Down 2.
Which is a heavy comparison.
Oh, it carries a lot of weight. Whenever we discuss inserting forces into hostile territory for an extraction, the specter of Black Hawk Down is, it's the ultimate cautionary tale.
Right, the Mogadishu nightmare.
Exactly. It represents that core fear of a technologically superior force suffering this cascading series of unpredictable failures. And it results in highly trained personnel trapped behind enemy lines.
And Operation Zagros Shadow brushed right up against that exact scenario. So today, we're going to walk you through the explosive, minute-by-minute timeline of this rescue.
But we also want to understand the mechanics behind it, right?
Yes, the staggering financial costs, the physics of the aircraft, and really the sheer human endurance required when algorithms and billion-dollar technologies inevitably fail.
Because they always do at some point.
Exactly. We're going to look at what went right, what went catastrophically wrong, and what it tells us about the future of combat.
Well, to understand a multi-billion-dollar response, you have to find the inciting incident. Because massive operations, they rarely just start massive.
Right, they start small.
Yeah, they start with a single, highly localized, catastrophic failure. And to find that failure, we have to look up at the skies over Isfahan, Iran, on April 3rd.
Let's set the scene there. April 3rd, you've got a U.S. military F-15E Strike Eagle, which the sources say specifically belonged to the 48th Fighter Wing, and it's conducting a reconnaissance mission near Isfahan.
And for context, if you look at a map of Iran's military infrastructure, Isfahan is not a place you just casually fly over.
No, definitely not.
It's essentially a fortress. Isfahan is this critical central node for Iran's military-industrial complex and their nuclear research infrastructure.
Right. Uranium conversion, drone plants, the works.
Exactly. Advanced research labs. And because of that, the airspace above it is ringed by some of the most dense, overlapping, sophisticated air defense networks in the entire Middle East.
So you don't just wander in there?
No, you do not send an aircraft into that specific airspace unless you are hunting for highly specific, time-sensitive intelligence that, frankly, you cannot get from a satellite.
And the forces guarding that fortress were definitely wide awake. The sources detail this terrifying technological clash because the F-15E, I mean, it's an incredible piece of machinery.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a jet with a price tag hovering around $100 million. And to survive in a hostile environment like Isfahan, it doesn't just rely on speed, right? It carries this highly classified electronic jamming system called the ALQ-135.
Right.
And I've heard this described in movies as a sort of like invisibility cloak. But how does an electronic jammer actually work in a real combat scenario?
Well, the term invisibility cloak is, it's a bit too magical. It's probably better to think of the ALQ-135 like a set of incredibly aggressive, active noise-canceling headphones.
Okay, noise canceling. How so?
To understand how it works, we have to look at the physics of radar. A ground-based radar installation sends out a highly focused pulse of radio waves traveling at the speed of light.
Right.
If that wave hits an object like our F-15, it bounces back to the dish. The dish calculates the time it took for the wave to return, and that gives the operator the jet's exact distance, speed, and altitude.
So it's basically shouting into a canyon and waiting to hear the echo.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. Now, the ALQ-135 pod on the jet is designed to listen for that initial shout.
Okay.
It detects the incoming radio wave. It analyzes its specific frequency and amplitude in like a fraction of a millisecond. And then the pod broadcasts its own radio wave back down at the dish.
But it's a trick.
Right. It broadcasts the exact inverse of the enemy's wave. It creates destructive interference. So when the Iranian radar operator looks at their screen, instead of seeing a clear blip indicating an American jet, they just see a massive smear of static.
Wow.
Or they might see ghost jets appearing miles away from the actual target. It completely blinds the targeting system.
I mean, that sounds foolproof. You're flying through enemy territory, actively canceling out their ability to see you. But the reality of physics catches up with the theory here, right?
Always does.
Yeah, the sources tell us that despite this incredibly advanced jammer, the jet was ambushed. It was hit by a massive, concentrated volley of anti-aircraft missiles.
Right?
And the analyst notes these were likely Iranian S-300s or their domestically produced equivalent, the Bavar 373. But if the jet is canceling out the radar, how did the missiles find it?
Simply because every computer has a processing limit. Noise cancellation works beautifully against, one or two radar beams.
Sure.
But the S-300 and VAR 373 are these really sophisticated phased array systems. They don't just send one beam.
So they just flood the zone.
Exactly. If the Iranian air defense commanders realize they're being jammed, they switch tactics. They coordinate multiple batteries to saturate the sky with dozens of radar frequencies simultaneously.
Oh, man.
And then they fire a massive volley of missiles into the general area. They just overwhelm the ALQ-135's computational bandwidth.
Like trying to listen to 20 conversations at once.
Exactly. The pod simply cannot analyze and spoof 20 different signals coming from 20 different angles all at the exact same time. The processing bottlenecks, the jamming fails for just a split second, and the missiles lock on.
It's like a rainstorm of arrows, and no matter how fast your shield moves, one arrow is going to find a gap.
That's exactly it.
So the missile strikes, and instantly this $100 million pinnacle of aviation technology is turned into a fireball. But, the hardware is only half the story. Inside that burning jet are two human beings.
Right. The F-15E is a two-seat aircraft. You have the pilot flying the jet in the front seat, and in the back seat, you have the weapons systems officer.
Commonly referred to as a WSO, right?
Yes, the WSO.
And the AI aggregated sources highlight a really crucial detail here. Both of these individuals hold the rank of colonel.
Which is significant.
Right, so the jet is hit, it's disintegrating,
Yeah.
and both men pull their ejection handles. And I want to pause here because the physics of an ejection at combat speeds are incredibly violent, aren't they?
It is honestly one of the most traumatic physical events a human body can survive. They're likely using the ACS-Bussy ejection system.
Okay.
When I pull those handles, a sequence measured in milliseconds takes over. First, explosive bolts blow the heavy canopy completely off the jet.
Right.
Then, these rocket motors mounted right under the seats ignite, blasting the crew out of the cockpit. They're subjected to upwards of 12 to 14 Gs of force.
Wow, 14 Gs.
Yeah, pushing them up and out into a wind blast that could be moving at like 600 miles per hour. It is literally like hitting a solid brick wall of air.
Just brutal. And what happens immediately after they punch out sets up this entire crisis we're talking about. The front seat pilot, the colonel actually flying the plane, he has astronomical luck.
He really does.
He survives the ejection, his parachute deploys, he drifts down, and almost the very minute his boots touch the dirt, he is scooped up by standby conventional rescue helicopters that were just loitering nearby.
And the pre-positioning of those helicopters really indicates just how risky the command knew this mission was.
You were expecting trouble.
Oh, absolutely. They likely had special operations rescue teams flying in stealth configurations right on the edge of Iranian airspace, just waiting for the call. Snatching that front seat pilot instantly like that, it's a textbook recovery.
But I'm struggling to understand the math here. You have two men ejecting from the exact same airplane at the exact same second.
Right.
The helicopters swoop in, grab the first pilot, and get out. But the second colonel, the WSO in the backseat, completely vanishes.
Yeah, he drifts down into the Zagros Mountains and is entirely cut off.
If the helicopters were right there to pick up his co-pilot, how does he slip off the radar so completely?
It really comes down to the brutal, unpredictable physics of high-altitude bailouts and, of course, the realities of the terrain.
Okay, explain that.
Well, when the ejection sequence initiates, the two seats are deliberately fired on slightly different diverging trajectories.
Why is that?
Because you cannot have two men rocket out on the exact same path, or they risk colliding in midair and killing each other. So right off the bat, they are separating.
Okay, so they fire outward in sort of a V shape?
Correct. And if they are ejecting at, say, 15 or 20,000 feet, they're entering the realm of high-altitude winds and jet streams. The air currents up there are ferocious.
Oh, right. They're basically at the mercy of the wind.
Exactly. One parachute might catch a thermal updraft or a crosswind that carries it for miles, while the other just drops straight down. By the time they reach the ground, they could easily be separated by 5, 10, or even 15 miles.
Wow. But that makes sense in the air. Once they hit the ground, though, wouldn't the helicopters just fly over to where he landed?
Well, you have to factor in the topography of the Zagros Mountains. I mean, this is not a flat, open desert where a white parachute stands out for miles.
Right.
The Zagros Range is this incredibly complex, jagged, unforgiving landscape. It's dominated by deep limestone ravines, sheer cliff faces, and really heavy shadows.
So he's completely hidden.
Yeah, if the second colonel drifted into a narrow gorge, he would be completely masked from visual observation from the air. And remember, those rescue helicopters are operating inside the kill zone of the exact same air defense system that just vaporized an F-15.
They can't just hang around.
Exactly. They cannot casually circle the mountains for an hour looking for him. The moment they lose the element of surprise, they are targets themselves. They grabbed the man they could see, and they had to retreat to survive.
Leaving our backseat colonel entirely alone. And this is the exact moment the White House initiates that massive 40-hour lockdown we discussed earlier. The entire U.S. government apparatus grinds to a halt. And I have to ask, is the loss of one officer really enough to trigger a national security crisis of that magnitude? Or is there a bigger geopolitical domino effect I'm missing here?
It is absolutely a geopolitical crisis. And it's driven entirely by who that man is and the information he holds.
Right, he's a colonel.
Right. We are not talking about a junior lieutenant on his first combat tour here. We're talking about an active duty colonel serving as a weapon systems officer on a deep penetration reconnaissance flight over a nuclear hub.
Which means he knows everything.
He really does. The WSO is the person in the jet operating the radar, the targeting pods, the electronic warfare suites, and managing the mission data.
He is basically a walking hard drive of state secret.
A hard drive full of the most sensitive tactical intelligence the United States possesses. He knows the exact frequencies the U.S. uses to jam Iranian radar. He knows the classified operational limits of the aircraft. He knows the specific targets they were ordered to photograph. If he is captured, the intelligence coup for Tehran is, it's immeasurable.
Because they could use that, right?
Oh yeah, they could use his knowledge to permanently recalibrate their air defenses against future U.S. incursions.
And beyond the raw data in his head, there's the undeniable nightmare of propaganda. The sources make this clear. If the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps captures a full-bird American colonel, he wouldn't just be quietly locked in a cell somewhere.
No, absolutely not.
He would be subjected to intense interrogation and inevitably paraded on Iranian state television. Forcing a U.S. colonel into a televised apology and confession would be a massive global humiliation for Washington.
It would give Iran massive, immediate leverage in literally any geopolitical negotiation. So preventing his capture isn't just about saving a life, it's about preventing a seismic shift in the balance of power.
Which brings us to the reality of what this man actually faced on the ground. The AI sources outline a really harrowing 40-hour survival ordeal.
It's hard to even imagine.
Just try to picture that for the listener. You have survived a 600-mile-per-hour ejection. Your body is battered by G-forces. You land in the freezing, jagged rocks of the Zagros Mountains. You're completely alone. And you know an entire nation's military is mobilizing to hunt you down.
And according to the analyst's breakdown, his only physical defense was a standard-issue service pistol.
A 9mm pistol against helicopters, drones, and mechanized infantry.
The isolation alone would be suffocating. And the physical environment is deadly. The Zagros Mountains experience massive temperature swings.
Right, hot days, cold nights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During the day, the sun reflects off the rock, but at night, the temperature plummets below freezing. He's likely dealing with shock, dehydration, and the creeping threat of hypothermia, all while actively evading capture.
And you would think that very first thing you do in that situation is grab your survival radio, turn it on, and just scream your GPS coordinates to anyone listening.
Right, that's instinct.
But the sources detail a survival strategy that highlights the terrifying reality of modern warfare. The analyst notes he did the exact opposite. He immediately powered down all his electronic devices. He went completely radio silent.
Because turning on a standard radio in modern peer-to-peer warfare is effectively suicide.
Explain that. Why?
Well, Iran operates highly sophisticated signals intelligence, or SIGINT, units. They have receivers constantly scanning the electromagnetic spectrum. If a U.S. survival radio powers up and emits a continuous radio frequency, Iranian listening posts will instantly pick up the wave.
How fast can they locate him from just a radio wave?
Seconds. Honestly, seconds. They use a technique called time difference of arrival.
Okay, how does that work?
If 3 different Iranian listening posts pick up his radio signal, computers measure the microsecond difference in when the signal reached each station. By drawing intersecting lines based on those minute time differences, they can triangulate his exact geographic coordinates almost instantly.
Oh, wow.
And once they have that, they just drop an artillery shell on the location.
So how does he actually call for help without painting a target on his back? The sources explain that he utilized this highly disciplined technique. He didn't broadcast a voice message at all.
Right.
Instead, he used ultra-short encrypted pulse signals. And he only sent these signals during highly specific prearranged time windows. So walk me through the mechanics of a pulse signal.
A pulse signal, often called a burst transmission, fundamentally changes how data is sent. Instead of holding down a button and talking for 10 seconds, the kernel types a short text message.
Probably just his GPS and maybe medical status.
Exactly. He types that into his device. The device encrypts that text, compresses it into a tiny digital packet, and waits. When he knows a U.S. communication satellite is passing overhead based on the specific time windows programmed into his gear, he points the antenna and hits transmit.
And it sends it all at once.
Yes. The device fires the compressed data packet into space in a fraction of a second. We're talking maybe 0.2 seconds.
A microburst. It's so fast the Iranian sensors can't lock onto it.
Exactly. It registers as a tiny, instantaneous blip of static on their monitors.
Yeah.
And it's gone before their computers can triangulate the source.
That's incredible.
He whispers his location to a satellite moving at 17,000 miles per hour, and then immediately powers the device back down and moves to a new hiding spot. It requires immense psychological discipline to only call for help for a quarter of a second at a time.
And he had to keep moving because the Iranian military wasn't just relying on antennas to find him. The expert analysis from the sources highlights this brutal tactic used by Tehran. They essentially crowdsourced the manhunt.
Yeah, that's a terrifying element.
They officially issued a $5,000 bounty to any local civilian in the region who could find the American pilot.
And to understand the sheer danger of that tactic, you really have to look at the local economy. In the remote mountain villages of the Zagros range, the Iranian rial has suffered massive inflation.
So $5,000 is huge.
5,000 US dollars is a staggering, life-altering amount of money.
Yeah.
It is an absolute fortune.
So it's no longer just soldiers looking for him. It's every shepherd, every farmer, every teenager with a flashlight.
The Iranian government essentially turned the entire local population into a highly motivated search grid. And these are people who know the terrain intimately.
They live there.
Right. They know which caves hold heat, they know the go paths, they know where water collects. The colonel wasn't just hiding from trained troops in uniform. He had to assume every single human being within a 50-mile radius was actively hunting him.
That level of paranoia is just unimaginable. Every snapping twig is a threat. But while he is freezing in the dark playing this deadly game of cat and mouse, headquarters in Washington is fighting an entirely different kind of war to protect him.
Information war.
Exactly. The sources point out that the CIA intervened, launching a massive information warfare campaign. They deliberately leaked fake news. They seeded reports into global open-source intelligence networks, claiming that the second pilot had already been rescued by special forces near a completely different border region.
And this is a textbook manipulation of the enemy's OD loop, observe, orient, decide, act.
OD loop, right?
Yeah. The CIA knows that Iranian intelligence officers aren't just looking at radar screens. They are monitoring global news feeds, social media, and intercepting diplomatic chatter.
Open source intelligence.
Right. Owes a descent. So by injecting a highly credible, specific lie into those open streams, the CIA is attempting to essentially hack the minds of the Iranian commander.
It's a sleight of hand. They are shouting, "Look over here, the crisis is over."
And according to the analysts' conclusions, the trick worked.
Wow.
The Iranian commanders observed the leaked reports. They oriented their strategy around the idea that the pilot had slipped their net and was heading for the border, and they decided to reallocate their search assets. They pulled helicopters and patrols away from the Zagros mountains to chase a ghost.
Because in warfare, manipulating reality like that buys the one commodity you can never manufacture. Time to actually go get him. Because knowing his GPS coordinates and tricking the search parties only gets you so far. Headquarters now had this rapidly closing window to physically extract a wounded man from hostile mountainous terrain. And to do that, they didn't just send a sneaky helicopter under the cover of darkness. They designed an unprecedented armada.
And this is where we see the real fusion of cutting-edge technology and military doctrine. A rescue operation of this scale is no longer planned by generals pushing wooden blocks around a paper map.
Right, it's digital.
The cyber military analyst details how this armada was designed entirely by AI pre-computation. The military fed thousands of variables into AI systems.
Like what kind of variables?
Oh, the specific density of the air in the Zagros Mountains, the fuel burn rates of different engines, the known ranges of Iranian surface-to-air missiles, the lunar cycle, local weather patterns, everything.
So they're building a perfect digital twin of the battlefield.
Exactly, and then they run what are called Monte Carlo simulations. The AI plays out the rescue mission thousands of times in the computer.
Trying different combinations.
Right. What happens if we send 2 helicopters? Well, the AI shows a 90% failure rate because they get shot down. What if we send fighter jets to bomb the radars first? The AI shows a 60% failure rate because the bombing alerts the infantry.
So it just keeps crunching the numbers?
The AI continuously iterates until it finds the mathematical sweet spot, the exact combination of aircraft that yields the highest probability of survival.
And the output of those AI simulations is staggering. The analyst lists the inventory of the fleet deployed for this one man, and it reads like they emptied an entire Air Force base.
It's massive.
Listen to this breakdown for the listener. They deployed roughly 26 aircraft in total. That includes 2 MH-6 Little Bird helicopters, 6 MH-60 Blackhawks, 4 massive CH-47 Chinook heavy transports, 2 MC-130J Hercules transport planes, 4 heavily armored A-10C Warthog ground attack aircraft, and a fleet of F-15E Strike Eagles.
It is a tiered, multi-dimensional force. Every single airframe has a hyper-specific role dictated by the map.
Okay, break that down.
Well, the MH-6 Little Birds are highly agile, designed to drop into tight ravines where larger rotors would hit the rock walls. The Blackhawks carry elite rescue jumpers and establish a close-in defensive perimeter.
Right.
The Chinooks provide heavy lift capability for mass casualty situations or moving vehicles. The MC-130Js are the logistical backbone, the A-10s are the brute force protection, and the F-15s establish absolute dominance of the airspace at high altitude.
I have to pause and push back on this strategy, though, because if I put myself in the shoes of that colonel, I am freezing, I am whispering to satellites, I am relying entirely on stealth to stay alive.
Right.
And the military solution is to send 26 aircraft, heavy transports, fighter jets, ground attack planes. Doesn't a massive, incredibly noisy, highly visible fleet completely defeat the purpose of a stealthy mountain extraction? It sounds like trying to sneak up on a mouse with a brass band.
It is a totally counterintuitive concept, but it represents a fundamental shift in modern extraction doctrine. The AI simulations clearly concluded that stealth was a statistical trap.
A trap? How so?
When you are penetrating the dense air defense network of a nation-state like Iran, stealth only buys you the first 50 miles. The moment a single thermal camera picks up a helicopter engine or a single radar dish catches a glimpse of a rotor blade, the illusion of stealth is completely shattered.
And then you're just a slow-moving target.
Exactly. And if your entire survival plan relies on not being seen, you instantly fail the moment you are detected.
So the AI assumes they will eventually be seen and plans for the worst-case scenario.
Yes, they flip the doctrine from stealth to overwhelming localized dominance. It relies on the concept of extreme redundancy. Look closely at the F-15E Strike Eagles in that fleet. The analyst explicitly notes they were deployed for anti-radiation suppression.
Okay, in military terminology, this is known as SEAD, right? Suppression of enemy air defenses.
That's correct.
And if you're wondering what anti-radiation suppression actually means in practice, how does an F-15 suppress a radar dish?
By physically destroying it the moment it turns on. The F-15s are armed with specialized weapons, likely AGM-88 HARM missiles. Yeah, these missiles have sensors in the nose that literally sniff out radar frequencies. The F-15s fly high above the rescue helicopters, essentially daring the Iranians to look at them.
It's a provocation.
Exactly. The doctrine is aggressive. If an Iranian radar operator turns on their dish to track the incoming helicopters, the HARM missile instantly detects the beam of radio waves, locks onto it, and rides that invisible beam all the way down to the ground, detonating and destroying the radar dish.
That is brutal. It's not, we hope you don't see us, it's, if you open your eyes, we will permanently blind you.
Right. It creates a protective bubble of intimidation around those slow-moving helicopters.
Yeah.
But establishing that bubble creates a massive logistical nightmare.
Fuel, right.
Yes. Helicopters, especially heavily loaded Black Hawks and Chinooks, have notoriously short operational ranges compared to fixed-wing jets. They burn fuel at a staggering rate, especially when flying low to the ground to avoid detection.
Right, the distance problem. The nearest friendly bases or aircraft carriers are likely hundreds of miles away in the Persian Gulf or allied nations.
They are.
So the helicopters simply do not have the gas tank to fly all the way deep into central Iran, hover in the mountains, and fly all the way back. And it's not just about fuel either. The sources highlight the medical reality.
Which is dire.
The colonel has been exposed to freezing temperatures for nearly 2 days. He's likely suffering from physical trauma from the ejection. You can't just toss a hypothermic, wounded man into the unheated back of a vibrating helicopter and fly for 3 hours over hostile territory. He needs immediate, complex medical stabilization.
Which forces the military to execute one of the most dangerous maneuvers in logistics, establishing a FARP.
A forward arming and refueling point.
Exactly. If your helicopters can't reach the target from a safe base, you have to bring a piece of your safe base with you and drop it right in the middle of enemy territory.
And the location the AI selected for this forward base is wild. The sources indicate the U.S. forces chose a dilapidated, abandoned, severely desertified airfield located south of Isfahan.
Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere.
They decided to use this desolate stretch of baked sand to land their 2 massive MC-130J Hercules transport planes.
And bringing an aircraft of that size down into an unmaintained, desertified environment is an immense calculated risk.
Yeah.
But the MC-130J is really the only tool for the job. It is essentially a flying Swiss Army knife.
Okay, let's look at what it does.
First, it acts as a massive flying gas station.
Yeah.
It carries thousands of gallons of aviation fuel that can be pumped directly into the helicopters right on the dirt runway.
And second, it solves a medical crisis. The MC-130J is large enough to be configured as a flying trauma center.
Oh, absolutely.
The sources note these planes can carry full-field surgical tables, blood supplies, and specialized medical teams. The plan was to snatch the colonel off the mountain, fly him a short distance down to this desert oasis, rush him into the back of the Hercules, stabilize his vitals on an operating table, and then make the long flight home.
But the third function of the MC-130J highlights just how vulnerable sitting on the ground in Iran actually is. The analyst's data suggests these planes were also packed with heavy ground defense assets.
Because you can't just park 2 massive transport planes in the desert and hope nobody notices.
You really can't. The U.S. likely deployed elite units, such as SEAL Team 6, but light infantry weapons aren't enough. The planes would have carried fully loaded light ATVs, armored troop carriers, or potentially even mini-tanks to roll down the cargo ramps.
I have to ask, why do SEALs need mini tanks to secure a dirt runway for an hour?
Because of the specific threat profile of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC.
Huh.
If local militias or IRGC patrols discover this forward base, they aren't going to hike out there with rifles. They are going to respond with technicals.
Right, technicals.
In modern asymmetric warfare, a technical is usually a modified Toyota pickup truck with a heavy weapon mounted in the bed, like a DSHK heavy machine gun or a twin-barreled anti-aircraft cannon.
And those things are lethal.
A single technical rolling over a sand dune can completely shred a helicopter on the ground. The SEALs needed heavy, motorized firepower that could establish a hard, armored perimeter in the sand to repel a mechanized assault.
So the AI simulation has generated a brilliant plan. You fly in, you establish this heavily fortified medical refueling hub in the desert, you snatch the guy off the mountain, patch him up, gas up the choppers, and fly home.
That's the plan.
But here's the terrifying reveal. This is the moment where millions of dollars of AI computation completely shatter against physical reality.
Yeah, the friction of war.
The analyst's intelligence details a massive landing disaster. The planes approach the abandoned airfield under the cover of darkness. The first MC-130J touches down on the dirt, and immediately it sinks deep into the sand.
Just plows right in.
The massive tires just dig into the earth, and the multi-million-dollar aircraft is completely stuck.
And this is exactly what Clausewitz meant by the friction of war.
Yeah.
He wrote that in war, everything looks simple on paper, but the simplest things are actually incredibly difficult because of unpredictable variables.
Because the AI didn't predict the sand.
Well, the AI algorithms can calculate fuel consumption down to the ounce. They can perfectly predict the orbital mechanics of the satellites handling the pulse signals. But an algorithm cannot perfectly predict the granular compaction and sheer strength of soil on an abandoned lake bed south of Isfahan.
Let's dig into the physics of that. Why does a plane that lands perfectly on a paved runway suddenly sink in the desert?
It comes down to ground pressure and kinetic energy. An MC-130J, loaded with fuel, medical gear, and armored vehicles, weighs upwards of 160,000 pounds.
That is incredibly heavy.
Yeah. A paved concrete runway is engineered to distribute that massive weight. But a desertified airfield is deceptive. From satellite imagery, it might look like a solid expanse of baked mud, but often that is just a thin crust.
And when 160,000 pounds hits it?
When it hits that crust at 130 miles per hour, the kinetic energy shatters the surface. The sand underneath offers zero resistance. The tires dig in, the friction coefficient spikes instantly, and the forward momentum tries to rip the landing gear right off the plane.
And that physical reality triggers a catastrophe because it gets worse. The first plane is stuck in the mud. It's a massive, highly visible target. The second MC-130J comes in right behind it.
Following the flight path.
Exactly. It touches down, hits the compromised, shattered terrain created by the first plane, and the immense physical force simply snaps its front landing gear entirely. The titanium strut breaks.
Unbelievable.
In a matter of minutes, the entire foundational anchor of the mission, the medical center, the refueling station, the heavy armor, is instantly crippled.
It is a commander's absolute worst nightmare.
Yeah.
You can bring the best operators in the world, you can have total air superiority, but poor soil mechanics just turned your extraction point into a graveyard.
They're just sitting there.
Yeah. Your most critical assets have suddenly become massive liabilities that cannot take off. The entire operational timeline, perfectly synchronized by AI, is blown completely out of the water.
So the timeline is dead. You have a wounded guy still freezing in the mountains, an armada circling in the sky, burning fuel, and the two most important planes in the fleet are literally broken in the sand in hostile territory. The AI plan is gone. So how did they actually reach the colonel when their anchor point was destroyed?
They had to rely entirely on human adaptation. The pilots and commanders had to throw away the digital playbook and rely on raw mechanical endurance and sheer willpower.
Just figure it out on the fly.
Exactly. The mission shifted from a highly orchestrated ballet to a desperate scramble.
Which brings us to the climax of the extraction itself. The analyst's source material describes a mountain rescue that physically pushes the absolute limits of aviation engineering.
It really does.
The helicopter fleet, the agile little birds, and the troop-carrying Blackhawks, they leave the crippled base and fly low-altitude raids deep into the jagged Zagros mountains. And the source includes a data point that made me do a double take.
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
They report the helicopters reached a ridge altitude of over 37,000 feet to snatch the wounded colonel under the noses of the enemy.
And we absolutely must examine the physics of that number. 37,000 feet is an extraordinary, almost unbelievable data point to pull from intelligence aggregation.
To give the listener some context, commercial airliners 747s, they cruise comfortably at 35,000 feet. The absolute summit of Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth, is just over 29,000 feet.
Exactly.
So you're saying they flew helicopters higher than Mount Everest. How is a helicopter even physically capable of doing that?
Fundamentally, they shouldn't be. Helicopters generate lift by spinning airfoil blades through the air, creating a pressure differential. At sea level, the air is thick and dense, giving the blades plenty of molecules to push against.
Right, there's air to grab.
But as you climb, the air density drops dramatically. Air becomes a very thin fluid. At 37,000 feet, there is barely any air for the rotors to grip.
So what happens to a normal helicopter at that altitude?
It enters a terrifying aerodynamic state, often called the coffin corner.
The coffin corner.
Yeah. To get enough lift in thin air, the pilot has to pitch the rotor blades steeper and spin them faster. But if they spin too fast, the tips of the long blades actually break the sound barrier.
Oh, wow.
They go supersonic, creating massive shock waves that destroy the blade's ability to create lift, causing the helicopter to just fall out of the sky.
That's terrifying.
Furthermore, the turbine engines need oxygen to burn jet fuel. In thin air, the engine starves, loses power, and flames out.
So if the physics make it impossible, is this a typo in the AI's data scrape, or did they actually pull this off?
Well, it could be an anomaly in the fragmented open source reports the analysts aggregated. However, if we take the intelligence at face value, it implies one of two incredible realities.
Okay, what are they?
Either the U.S. military deployed highly classified, heavily modified rotary wing aircraft with specialized oxygen-injected turbines and advanced blade aerodynamics that the public just doesn't know about.
Yeah.
Or the pilots were manually overriding every safety governor in the cockpit.
Just pushing past the red line?
Exactly. They were pushing standard airframes so far beyond their stated operational limits that they were essentially daring the engines to melt. They were fighting the physics of the thin air with sheer, desperate pilot skill to hover over that specific peak just long enough to drop a winch line.
It underscores just how extreme the terrain was and the lengths human beings will go to save one of their own.
That's pure guts.
Whether it was secret technology or sheer willpower, they did it. They dropped the line, they hooked the colonel, and they pulled him off that freezing ridge. But catching the mouse is only half the problem. Now they have to get out of the trap.
And remember, the element of surprise is completely gone at this point.
Totally gone. The explosions from the missiles earlier, the radio chatter, the sheer noise of the armada, the Iranian ground forces are fully alerted. They know exactly where the helicopters are.
Right.
The Blackhawks and Little Birds are heavily loaded, they're moving slow, and they are incredibly vulnerable as they try to retreat out of the mountains.
And this is exactly why the AI insisted on redundancy in the first place. The helicopters are sitting jucks, so the commanders call in the one asset designed specifically to survive this exact nightmare.
The A-10C Warthog.
The flying tank.
The sources describe the withdrawal, and it sounds apocalyptic. Enter the 4 A-10C Warthogs. Their singular job is to protect the slow-moving helicopters as they crawl toward the coastline.
And they are built for this.
The analyst vividly describes how these A-10s aggressively swept the valleys. They formed a protective screen alternating in tight, continuous circles over the retreating fleet. And they just unleashed hell. They burned through their massive Gatling gun ammunition to completely suppress any Iranian ground forces pursuing them.
Let's talk about the mechanics of the A-10, because it is not a sleek, fast fighter jet.
No, it's pretty ugly, honestly.
It is. It was built around a single weapon, the GAU-8 Avenger, a massive 30mm 7-barrel Gatling gun. It fires armor-piercing shells made of depleted uranium.
Wow.
Its entire purpose in the military doctrine is close air support. Its job is to fly incredibly low, get dirty, and physically destroy ground targets that threaten friendly troops.
So by flying in continuous circles and firing those massive shells, what are they actually achieving?
They are creating an unbroken dome of suppressive kinetic energy. The alternating circles mean there is never a gap in coverage. If one A-10 pulls up, the next one is already firing.
Like a wall of lead.
Exactly. It sends a very clear, brutal message to the Iranian infantry or technicals below. If you step out from behind a rock to fire a shoulder-launched missile at those helicopters, you will be obliterated by a wall of depleted uranium. They are physically keeping the enemy's heads down.
But the Iranian forces weren't just going to sit there and take it. In the chaos of this low-altitude withdrawal, the sources detail a heart-stopping moment.
Yeah, this part is intense.
One of the A-10s, flying low to the deck to protect the helicopters, took a direct hit from an Iranian surface-to-air missile.
And at almost any other modern aircraft, an F-35 and F-16, a direct surface-to-air hit at low altitude is immediately fatal.
Just game over.
Yes. The concussive force and shrapnel shred the delicate aerodynamics, the jet breaks apart, and the pilot have maybe 2 seconds to eject before hitting the ground. But the A-10 is an anomaly in aviation engineering.
I want to understand how a plane survives an exploding missile. What makes the Warthog so indestructible?
It comes down to a specific legendary design feature called the titanium bathtub.
The titanium bathtub?
Yeah. When engineers designed the A-10 during the Cold War, they knew it would be flying low and taking massive amounts of ground fire from Soviet tanks. They didn't prioritize speed, they prioritized survivability. So the pilot doesn't sit in his standard fragile cockpit. They sit inside a literal tub made of 1,200 pounds of solid titanium armor plates bolted together.
Literally a flying armored bumper.
Yes. This tub shields the pilot and the critical flight control linkages from the bottom and the sides. It is engineered to withstand direct hits from 23mm anti-aircraft cannons and absorb the high-velocity shrapnel from exploding missiles.
That's insane.
Furthermore, the aircraft is built with massive redundancy. The engines are mounted high and wide apart, so if one is destroyed, the other survives.
Okay, so it can fly on one engine.
Easily. The flight controls use physical cables too, not just hydraulics. So if the hydraulic fluid leaks out, the pilot can use a manual reversion system, literally using sheer physical muscle to pull cables and physically move the flaps to keep the plane in the air.
The engineering is just staggering. So the missile hits, the explosion rocks the aircraft, shrapnel tears huge holes through the outer fuselage, but that 1,200-pound titanium tub holds firm. The pilot survives the blast.
It did its job.
The analyst notes that the damaged A-10 absorbed the hit. It was crippled, aerodynamic surfaces blown away, smoke pouring out of the engines, but it stayed airborne. The pilot wrestled with the manual controls, limping along, continuing to escort the helicopter fleet.
Incredible discipline.
He pushed that broken machine forward until it finally crossed over the coastline of the Persian Gulf out of Iranian airspace. And only then, safely over the water, did the pilot finally eject and get scooped up by the accompanying helicopters.
It is the ultimate testament to the intersection of brilliant engineering and raw pilot endurance. The A-10 sacrificed itself to ensure the helicopter fleet made it to the water. It functioned exactly as it was designed to do.
It's an incredible image of survival. All the men, the stranded colonel who endured 40 hours in the freezing cold, the A-10 pilot who rode a broken jet over the ocean, the rescue crews, they are now safe. They are heading home over the Gulf.
But we have to go back to the desert for a minute.
Yes, we do. Because they had to leave something massive behind. Those 2 crippled MC-130J transport planes, the ones with the snapped landing gear, are still sitting in the sand south of Isfahan.
Right.
And what the military did to them birthed a massive wave of conspiracy theories.
This is a fascinating look at the aftermath of operations and how information becomes distorted in the fog of war. When an operation concludes with highly visible wreckage left behind in enemy territory, competing narratives inevitably rush in to explain what happened.
The intelligence sources address this directly. The analyst notes that viral internet rumors began spreading rapidly across social media platforms, claiming that the U.S. military went crazy and started bombing its own troops.
Which is wild.
People saw satellite images or blurry local cell phone footage of massive fiery explosions at this abandoned Iranian airfield, clearly destroying American planes, and they immediately assumed a friendly fire disaster of epic proportions.
But the analyst clarifies the reality of what the military calls asset denial protocols.
Right, asset denial.
Remember what we discussed about the FARP? Those 2 MC-130Js stuck in the sand weren't just empty metal tubes. They were packed with highly sensitive technology. We are talking about advanced encrypted communications gear with classified cryptographic keys, specialized medical equipment, heavily modified ATBs, and thousands of gallons of aviation fuel.
So you can't just leave it.
You absolutely cannot, under any circumstances, allow that technology to fall intact into the hands of the IRGC.
Because it would tear it apart.
They would reverse engineer the encryption gear to understand how the U.S. communicates, and they would parade the captured American vehicles through the streets of Tehran as a massive propaganda victory. The hardware must be destroyed.
So it wasn't a friendly fire accident. The sources state that to prevent the planes from falling into Iranian hands, they were intentionally rigged with time bombs by the U.S. forces before they evacuated on the helicopters. They placed explosives on the crypto gear, the engines, and the fuel tanks. As the rescue fleet flew away and reached a safe distance, a U.S. commander remotely detonated the explosive, entirely vaporizing their own forward base in a massive fireball.
It is a brutal, calculated necessity. You intentionally vaporize your own $500 million assets because the geopolitical cost of the enemy recovering them is far higher.
But to an outside observer.
Right, to an outside civilian observer, seeing American planes explode on a runway without understanding asset denial protocols, it looks like pure madness.
Yeah.
Which leads directly into the clash of narratives between the two nations involved.
And the cyber military analyst provides an incredibly objective breakdown of both sides of this aftermath, which is crucial for us to examine impartially.
Yes.
Iran immediately claimed a massive military victory. Their state media apparatus announced to the world that their heroic air defenses had shot down 4 American aircraft during the incursion, 2 heavy transports and 2 Black Hawk helicopters. They painted the entire operation as a humiliating, chaotic defeat for the United States.
Conversely, the United States officially acknowledges losing 3 aircraft in total during Operation Zagros Shadow.
Okay, so 3.
They admit to the initial $100 million F-15E that was shot down, triggering the crisis. They acknowledge the one downed A-10C Warthog that took the missile hit, protecting the retreat. And they acknowledge the 2 MC-130Js that they intentionally blew up in the desert after the landing gear failures. Wait, that's 4? I mean, the F-15, the A-10, and the 2 transports?
Right. The official tally is always a little confusing in these reports, but it's fascinating to see how the exact same chaotic event is spun by competing national interests.
It really is.
But regardless of which specific narrative you lean towards, the true, tangible cost of this operation is staggering. The analysts' sources provide a grim financial ledger.
And the numbers are huge.
Between the downed F-15E, the destroyed A-10, the 2 vaporized MC-130Js, the specialized SEAL gear, the armored vehicles left in the cargo holds, the thousands of gallons of fuel, and the massive logistical footprint of mobilizing a 26-aircraft armada, the hardware lost in this single operation is estimated between $200 million and $500 million.
$500 million in hardware. Evaporated in the span of 40 hours.
I am really struggling to reconcile those numbers. If you present that kind of return on investment to any corporate board burning $500 million to rescue a single employee, you would be laughed out of the room.
You'd be fired instantly.
It sounds completely insane from a purely financial standpoint. Why do it? What does spending that kind of staggering wealth to save one life actually say to the rest of the military?
It speaks to the psychological bedrock of the entire armed forces. The ethos of "no man left behind" isn't just a catchy slogan printed on recruitment posters. It is a vital, non-negotiable operational necessity.
Oh.
Well, if a government is asking fighter pilots to fly highly dangerous reconnaissance missions over hostile nuclear sites, or asking special operators to drop behind enemy lines in the dead of night, those individuals have to know, without a shadow of a doubt, that if the worst happens, their country will move heaven and earth to get them back.
It is an unspoken contract. You risk your life for the mission, and we will risk our entire arsenal to save you.
Exactly. The morale and the operational courage of the entire military apparatus rely entirely on that guarantee. If the United States Command had looked at the spreadsheet, decided the risk was too high, and simply written off that colonel in the mountains to save $500 million, the chilling effect on every other pilot, sailor, and soldier would be devastating.
It would break the trust entirely.
You cannot put a price tag on that level of institutional trust. But it must be objectively noted, only incredibly wealthy, technologically advanced nations can afford to practice this doctrine.
That's a good point.
For the vast majority of countries on Earth, an operation of this scale, risking this much capital and this many secondary lives for one individual, is physically and economically impossible. It is a flex of superpower logistics and wealth as much as it is a rescue mission.
It is a staggering reality to comprehend. We are going to see how all of this granular AI-aggregated intelligence holds up very soon, actually.
The press conference, right?
Yeah, the sources remind us that the official unclassified version of these events will be presented at the president's Monday 1 p.m. press conference. For those keeping track globally, that's 4 a.m. Beijing time.
It'll be absolutely fascinating to compare The polished, sanitized official narrative delivered from the podium with this gritty AI-compiled intelligence we've just unpacked.
I know. Will the press secretary mention the helicopters pushing the physical limits of the atmosphere at 37,000 feet? Will they detail the soil compaction failure that snapped the MC-130 landing gear? We'll see.
It will be a masterclass in watching how governments curate complex, messy information for public consumption versus the raw, chaotic reality of the battlefield.
Before we wrap up today's deep dive, I have to share the analyst's quirky final note from the source material. It takes a sharp, unexpected turn away from military tactics and into the economic ripples of all this chaos.
With the stock market note.
Yes. The analyst points out that global oil prices are fully expected to keep rising next week due to the massive tension generated by this deep incursion into Iranian airspace.
Which makes sense.
But interestingly, the analyst confidently predicts that A-shares Chinese mainland stocks won't drop on Monday despite the global geopolitical jitters. It's a fascinating little addendum showing how a snapped landing gear in the Zagros Mountains immediately translates into commodity speculation and stock market movements within hours.
Everything is interconnected. The kinetic reality of warfare instantly becomes data points for global algorithms. Which brings us to a final, lingering thought to mull over based on everything we've discussed today.
Leave us with it.
We started this deep dive talking about how AI was used to calculate the perfect probabilities for this rescue. The Monte Carlo simulations dictated a massive 26 aircraft fleet, the specific flight routes, the layered redundancy.
The perfect plan.
But when $500 million of cutting-edge technology snapped its landing gear in the desert sand, the entire mission was saved by variables the AI couldn't compute.
Human variables.
It was saved by a pilot enduring 40 hours of psychological terror in the freezing dark, relying on his training. It was saved by helicopter pilots pushing their airframes beyond the laws of physics. And it was saved by an A-10 pilot flying a heavily damaged, shrapnel-filled titanium jet over the ocean based on nothing but guts and manual muscle.
That's so true.
So as warfare becomes increasingly dictated by AI, predictive modeling, and sterile algorithms, will human resilience just become another data point? Or is human desperation the one variable a machine can never truly predict?
Until next time.